everybody. Hey, replay viewers. So good to see you. Thank you for joining me today on my Thursday Scope. Or if you're watching this in replay, whatever day happens to be for you. I am so excited to talk to you today. I am geeking out about the time orientation paradox. So I'm going to tell you a little more about where this came from, because since I wrote this blog post this week, which is how to avoid goal chasing burnout. Since I wrote this blog post, I have been thinking about it ever since and developing the idea even more and more and more. And so I'm just going to talk about it for a while and we'll see what we come up with. All right, let me turn you around here. Why do I always forget how to do this? Book. Hey. All right, onto the tripod you go. Nope, that's my hand. Excellent. Hey, welcome. I'm Amy Simpkins, and this is the Life Architecting Thursday Scope, where we talk about what went on the blog this week and go into even more detail. And so today what we're talking about is the time orientation paradox. I actually feel like you should say that in this, with a sci-fi voice. Be like, the time orientation paradox, or something like that. Because it sounds very dramatic, and I'm a very dramatic person, and so I love it. So this blog post originally started out as... and if you want to read the blog post, by the way, you can go to lifearchitecting.com/blog, and it is the top post for the week or the direct link to the blog is lifearchitecting.com/time-orientation-paradox, and you'll find it there. Okay. So originally the idea for this blog came from me just wanting to write you a love letter. And actually, to be quite honest with you, is to write myself a love letter, because I was working on all this stuff in the month of January, blogs for you, and then all my own goals that I've set. As I mentioned before, I'm a total goal-setting junkie, and so the beginning of the new year is kind of like crazy time for me, and I get so excited to set all my goals and say what I'm going to do and write them all down and make beautiful vision boards and all this crazy planning stuff, because I am an INFJ. If you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, I'm INFJ, and I'm a little bit I, I'm a little bit N, I'm a little bit F, and I'm like J off the charts, which means I'm a planner, and I like to plan the dive the plan. That comes from scuba diving, by the way, that when you go scuba diving, you want to make a plan for your dive, and then you want to go ahead and dive the plan. It's a safety issue when it comes to scuba diving. And in my life, I dive the plan, let me tell you. And I love planning. And so this time of year is just insanely awesome for me. So what happens was I cracked open my brand new shiny 2016 planner, and I started writing down everything I was going to do. And I got into the second week of just ticking my check boxes off and being so totally super excited to do that. And I started to get burned out. So we're talking after 10 days of working off my to-do list, I was starting to get burned out. If you want to talk about unsustainable, my friends, it's unsustainable when you start getting burned out after 10 days. And I was like, oh my gosh, something's got to change here. Something's got to change. And I started to think about all the things I want to do, and in that moment, thinking about all the things I wanted to do got so overwhelming, so intensely overwhelming, just to think about all of the things that I wanted to do, that I got to that moment where I think a lot of people get to, which was, I'm maybe I should just throw in the towel. Maybe I just bit off more than I could chew, and I really need to back off. I really need to back off. But I sat down for a minute, and I, my word of the year this year is flow. And as you may have noticed, I'm not very good at being in flow or going with the flow because I like to plan and I like to dive. I like to plan the dive and dive the plan. So because I like to stick to my plan so much, going with the flow is kind of a foreign concept for me. And so I kind of unplugged for a minute and said, wait, put everything on pause, put the checking off the to-do list on pause, put the daily habits on pause, and just for a minute, like, be here right in this moment and feel this frustration and feel this overwhelm. And then remember that you're enough. You're enough right in this moment. Even if you want to do all these amazing things this year, even if you want to get healthier and get stronger, and you want to start your own business, and you want to start new hobbies, and you want to try new things, and you want to travel more, and you want to explore, and there's all these things that you want to do, you are enough in this present moment. You are already enough. And that concept is such a paradox because even though you're already enough in this moment, and you are, that's the truth, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep striving. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep exploring and experimenting and trying things. And I think we have a tendency to swing, at least I do. I have a tendency to swing back and forth from this extreme of I'm achieving, I'm working, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there someday, but I'm not there yet, so I'm working. And that's one extreme. And you're totally forgetting that you're living life in the meantime. Okay? So that's one extreme. But then you get fed up and overwhelmed with that extreme, and you swing on the pendulum all the way back to the other side of this paradox, which is that no, I'm present in the moment. Namaste. Present in the moment. I'm enough right now, just as I am, and you're enough too, and everything's okay. Right now, this present moment, we are complete, we are whole, and therefore, we don't need to be doing any of that stuff. We don't need to strive for more. We don't need to change anything. Nothing needs to happen because we are enough right now. But then, after some time in that position, you feel stagnant. You're not moving. You feel bored. You want to be doing something. And maybe you truly do feel kind of nasty because, if it's something like you want to be moving your body more, you want to be getting stronger, healthier, maybe you really do feel physically bad by staying in this present state. And so that swings the pendulum all the way over to the other side. And now you're like, well, I've got to achieve this goal. Achieve, go, do. Do you see how this is a vicious cycle? This is a vicious cycle. So what I am suggesting to you today is that these two extremes on either side of the pendulum are two sides of a paradox. And what we need to be doing, instead of swinging violently back and forth between the two extremes, is to coexist. Is to somehow find a way to bring those two extremes into coexistence with each other. That you can both be enough and sufficient in the present moment. And that you can be happy in that. And satisfied and content in the present moment with who you are and what you do and what life is like right now today, and that you can enjoy that and smell the roses and all of that stuff, and at the same time be actively moving in a direction to actively achieving some new state of happiness and some new state of contentment and satisfaction. this is tricky. It's very tricky. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying this is easy. And honestly, I'm not even saying that I know how to do that very well. Okay? Because you can tell that being present in the moment is a challenge for me. And so I'm right there with you if either of those extremes are the challenge for you. I definitely get it. So, so how do we do it? I think the first step, and perhaps the biggest step, is to acknowledge the paradox. So what's a paradox? Let's pop out for a minute and let's geek out a minute about paradoxes. A paradox is two separate things that are true at the same time. This is a classic example of a paradox. And the concept of architecture, both in the sense of like buildings and any systems, engineering systems, which is the background that I come from, architecting is full of paradoxes. And in fact, that's often where the beauty in architecture comes out, is living in the paradox, accepting the paradox and living with it, and even leveraging it into something awesome that hasn't previously existed. And so, in architecture, like system architecture, you have like this paradox between simplicity, like the simplest solution usually being the correct one, but then there's this complexity, and like rectifying how simplicity and complexity work together or can coexist at the same time. It's hard. It's always hard when you're working with a paradox. They're always hard problems. They're usually unbounded problems without closed form solutions. It's not something you're going to calculate, you're going to plug into your calculator. And it's certainly not something you're going to you might not even be able to write a computer program to solve it, right? But somehow in the mess, in the organic, mucky mess of the paradox, there's beauty to be found. There's found beauty. And if you can first live with it and then leverage it, then you end up with this amazing, beautiful solution. And that's what's true in system architecture. But I'm also suggesting to you that that's the case here in life architecture. And there are, more paradoxes. But this is, you get into this, as a coach, I get into preaching preaching a message. And so I'm, if I preach the message that, you should set goals, you should be moving in a direction, you should create a momentum, and these are definitely part of my message as a coach, that I want to see you achieve your goals, and I want to see you move into the life that is going to support you and feel fulfilling, and I want to see you leave a mark on the world and have impact. And I want to create momentum so that it's self-sustaining, and so there's motion, you have inertia, it's kinetic, and I want to see all that from you. And so sometimes my message as a coach can be just unilateral. There's a word I'm looking for that I can't think of off the hand. But my message is just, it can sound like I'm saying like this motion is all there is, this future focus, this driving towards accomplishment, and this doing, this always doing something, is the ideal state, is where you want to be at. And that if you're not doing, it's not good. If you're not doing, you should be. Oh, that word should. Oh, I hate that word. We got to be really careful when you start to say should, the word should, that you should be doing something, right? And then maybe not. So that's usually, I think, the message that I might seem to portray to you. Then you might have other life coaches, and this is not so much my message, but maybe it can be at times, that like the you are enough message. You're enough just as you are, and you don't need to change for anybody, and you don't need to, you just need to be present in the moment and be at peace with yourself, and if that's an important message too, obviously. That's the other side of this paradox, because you are enough. I'm going to keep saying that. You are enough. You are wonderful, perfect, just the way you are right now, just the way you are right now. But if that's the only message, then that results in this stagnation. So we have forward motion, future focus comes overwhelm, and with present moment and acceptance and contentment comes stagnation. So the key to working through the paradox and to leveraging it into something beautiful is first to accept that it exists. And to accept that you can be in both states at once, even if it intellectually doesn't make a ton of sense, that you can be in both states at once. And this is where faith and science meet. Ooh, maybe another paradox. But you need to have faith that even if you can't wrap your head around that these states coexist, that it's possible for the states to coexist. And you need to trust that these states coexist, okay? And so I guess that's what I want to bring to you today. I want to bring you the message that you are enough right now. You are beautiful and perfect in this present moment. And you can also make big changes that make your life even better. And you can do it. You can create that forward momentum and that inertia. All right. So this is really awesome. So now that you have those two things, how can you create the life that leverages the paradox to turn it into something beautiful? I don't know. I don't know the answer. And that's beautiful too, because maybe the answer for me is different from your answer. I am a person who likes a lot of structure. And I like to build a lot of structure and say that if I follow the structure and stay in the structure, I'll be able to do what I need to do. I'll be happy. I'll be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish. And the thing about accepting, embracing this paradox and leveraging it is that there's no system for this. There's no structure, there's no format, there's no step-by-step process I'm going to give you that's going to do this for you. This is messy. This is organic. This is the stuff of human life. This is what makes human, this isn't calculable by a computer. No robot will ever be able to do this for you. And that can be frustrating, but it's also beautiful because it's up to you every day. And it's so adaptable, right? It's so adaptable that if one day future focus is working for you and you don't need to remind yourself to be in the moment, more power to you. Get on that horse and ride it. And if another day you just need to totally unplug, I'm going to the extremes of this pendulum again, right? If we go to extreme to the other pendulum and you just need to sit and you just need to be and you need to enjoy every moment and forget about doing and building and what's on the to-do list, then more power to you. You can do that. And so the idea is to find ways in each day to generate forward momentum, but also appreciate the present time. To create accomplishment, opportunities for accomplishment, and also opportunities for stillness at the same time. And the answer of how that's going to work for me is different than how it's going to work for you. And in fact, how it works for me is different every single day. It depends. It depends how much sleep I get with a baby in the house. It depends on if my kids are with a childcare provider like they are today, or if I have the kids with me. It depends on what we're having for dinner. It depends on other life obligations. But it's the most important thing. The most important thing is to remember it. And when you start to feel that niggling overwhelm because you are pursuing the doing too much. You need to remember the paradox and focus on the being. Okay? Someone during this period of growth in my life and this career revolution for me, so a number of people said to me, you are a human being, not a human doing, which is true. And that was a very powerful understanding for me, to focus more on the being, because I'm usually so do focused. But on the flip side, if you've been present a lot and you've been smelling the roses a lot and you feel stagnant, it's important to remember that future focus is important too. They are both important. They can both coexist, and you can leverage that coexistence into something beautiful, something awesome in your life. Okay, so how was that? That was a whole lot of preaching and not a lot of concrete takeaways. But I was super excited to talk about it. Hopefully just having a name for it, being able to name it, will help you out. Because I know that in the second week of January, I very much needed to hear someone, even if it was myself, say that I am enough. And so I want to bring that message to you while also kicking you in the pants to do, to achieve your goals. All right. So that was awesome. There you go. Time orientation paradox. Time orientation because you're both future focused and present in the moment at the same time. It's a paradox. They can coexist. Wrap your brain around it because it's true. All right. Fantastic scope. I hope you all have a great day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you today, and I don't think so. So join me on Thursdays at noon Mountain Time here on Periscope to talk about the thoughts of the week every week and architect a life of fulfillment and impact. You can do it. See you next week.